Good evening and welcome to the residents of French Court, French Park, Willard, Washington Squares, and Santa Triangle. Thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your evening with us. We are meeting here tonight as part of a series of community meetings that are being conducted till the end of May. These meetings are being conducted to get your input and feedback regarding issues impacting the environment, as well as the quality of life in your neighborhood, as well as other various neighborhoods throughout the city that are considered to be environmental justice and environmental burden communities. Your participation tonight will assist staff in finalizing the general plan, and that will be considered by the City Council at the end of this year. We are joined tonight by Paul Eakins, who will be stepping in for our mayor to discuss information about the American Rescue Plan and to provide the audience with information on how to provide feedback and participate in letting the city know how to prioritize the funding that we will be receiving from the federal government through that program. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our staff that are helping us tonight and facilitating this meeting. We have Melanie McCann. She is the project manager and the principal planner on the General Plan Update project. We have Margarita Macedonia. She is our senior planner and she will be helping to moderate a portion of the meeting. Alyssa Ventura, she's our assistant planner and she is helping with all of the technical operations of this Zoom meeting. I have Ricardo Soto, he's our senior planner. He will be working on the interactive survey of this meeting as well as answering questions. And we have our interpreter, Tu Vu and Nilda Anaya, providing interpretation both in Vietnamese and Spanish. So at this point in time, Alyssa, if you can please go over how our audience can participate in this meeting as well as getting interpretive information.
Hi, everyone. So we do have Spanish and Vietnamese interpretation available today. In a moment, you'll be able to see a little globe that you'll be able to click on, and you'll be able to select whether you want to listen to this meeting in Spanish or Vietnamese. Nilda, if you can go ahead and provide these instructions in Spanish.
Ok, buenas tardes. Si quiere participar, hay varias maneras de poder participar en la junta y puede, hay traducción disponible al español y al vietnamita y en el globito que sale ahí abajo puede hacer clic y escoger la traducción ya sea español o vietnamita.
Thank you, Nilda. Tu, if you can go ahead and provide these instructions in Vietnamese.
Dạ, xin kính chào quý vị. Tối nay để nghe cái cuộc trình bày trong cái cuộc họp tối nay thì chúng tôi có hai kênh để mà nghe về thông dịch. Thì quý vị có thể nhấn vào cái chỗ trên cái màn ảnh. Quý vị nhìn thấy số 1 là cái quả địa cầu nhỏ. Quý vị nhấn vào, nó nằm ở cái phía dưới cùng mỗi màn ảnh của quý vị phía bên tay phải. Và cái số 2 là khi quý vị nhấn vào đó, quý vị sẽ thấy ra hai nó đề là Spanish với Vietnamese. Nếu ai muốn nghe tiếng Tây Ban Nha nhấn vào Spanish và ai muốn nghe tiếng Việt nhấn vào Vietnamese thì quý vị sẽ nghe thông dịch tiếng Việt và do tôi phụ trách. Cảm ơn quý vị. Yes.
Thank you, Tu. And then Ricardo provided the PowerPoint link. Our presentation is available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So use that link if you want to follow along in the language that you prefer. And for those English speakers, you will have the option to select the English language on the Zoom interpretation feature. And that's if we have either a Spanish or Vietnamese speaker during the presentation, if they're making any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa, Tu, and Nilda. At this point in time, I'd like to turn over our program to Paul Eakins.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. I know the mayor has been speaking. Just want to make sure, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sounds good, okay. So I'm Paul Eakins, I'm the Public Affairs Information Officer for the city. and I'm filling in for the mayor today. He's been speaking at some of these community meetings, but he could not make it tonight. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and Revive Santa Ana, which you may have heard of. Obviously, this is something the City Council has been discussing and has gotten a lot of attention. It's something we've been promoting to get public input on. It's an important aspect of our program is the public feedback. The American Rescue Plan Act was passed and signed into law this year, and it's to help provides funding for local and county, state agencies to respond to the public health emergency of the pandemic, both the health aspects and financial impacts. Obviously, there have been a lot of those here in Santa Ana and throughout the country, and provides some of the guidelines or some of the expectations are that we could use it potentially for things like infrastructure from sort of traditional infrastructure and also broadband and other more technological infrastructure. Here are a few of the key points that we're looking at here in Revive Santa Ana. So we are calling this this money, the program being used, being created with this money, Revive Santa Ana. The city is expected to receive approximately $143 million from the federal legislation. And so we have a 5-point plan. And this is still in the early stages because we haven't officially received the full guidelines from the federal government of how the money can be used exactly, but we do have some ideas of what we can expect. So we have COVID-19 recovery for things such as inequities in our health resources, outreach and testing, vaccinations and education, all of these aspects that have become, we've really seen how important these are during this past year and more, to the need that we have in our community for all of these different aspects of health care and health access. Also assistance programs such as financial relief for businesses, workers, and residents. We've given out millions and millions of dollars already over the past year through Santa Ana Cares and other programs that already existed for rental assistance and business grants. And so we hope to continue and many of these programs and create new ones as well. We have public health and safety as a part of this. Again, as I mentioned, critical infrastructure such as mobility, technology, amenities. There's a broad range of things. Infrastructure, as you may have heard from the president's infrastructure bill, can encompass a wide variety of things. And so we hope to really take a global look at all of our needs here in the city. And then also the city's fiscal health, because obviously most local governments, most government agencies have been financially impacted by the pandemic due to reduction in sales tax or other things. The city of Santa Ana has fared this fairly well compared to some cities. We don't have such a large portion of our revenue that relies on things like Disneyland, for example, which has been shut down until recently for Anaheim. But we do have some areas where we lost revenue still because obviously there were financial impacts as businesses shut down and other things like that. So that's sort of the broad look at how we're going to look to spend this money. If you want to move to the next slide there, thank you. So as I mentioned before, a big part of this is to get the public's input on this. We have a survey that is available online as well as in paper form at City Hall and at our libraries. And then also it's at that website there you see on your screen. And that website has some more information about the program. And then it also has a link to where you can join us next week on May 11th for a community town hall where we will be discussing the Revive Santa Ana program. The city manager will be on that call and explaining this more thoroughly, and then answering questions and hearing your feedback about ideas. So it gives you a couple opportunities. You can join the meeting and you can take the survey online or in the paper form and tell us what you think about our ideas that we have, both the city council, which has a lot of different ideas, and then city staff and our directors like Mr. Mintai here, who all have a lot of ideas about the services that we can provide and the programs that we could create through this funding. But also we want to know your thoughts and your ideas beyond these as well. And I should mention that if you go to our website, like at any of our web pages on our website, there's a place up in the top right-hand corner, or if you're on your phone, there's a menu box with 3 lines where you can select a language. So you can go to Spanish or Vietnamese or some other languages in order to read the page in those languages. And then the survey itself is in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So you just choose your language there. And then again, for next week's town hall on May 11th, that will also have, like this one, Spanish and Vietnamese interpreters. So that is the broad overview. And I guess yep, okay, and there we go. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Paul. At this point in time, is there anyone that would like to provide any feedback to Paul? You can do so. We'll have some time for taking some of your comments. But if you should think of any additional ideas that you may think of after this meeting, again, you can contact us through one of the 3 method that is up on the screen right now, either on our website, the survey, via email or text. Marguerite, at this point in time, do you see any hands up or is there any questions?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions just related to how to participate or anything else big picture about this that I can answer.
We have no questions so far.
Thank you.
While
While everyone may be getting prepared, I just want to recognize we have Council Member Jonathan Hernandez have joined us tonight. Council Member, would you like to take a quick minute to say hello?
Go ahead, Council Member.
Hi, thank you so much. Just wanted to say thank you to staff, Margarita, and everyone else for putting this wonderful presentation together. And this is really an opportunity for us to advance the city and really get ahead of a lot of potential issues. We have a very rare opportunity that cities don't see very often with the American Rescue Fund. So I encourage all the residents that are here today to bring that passion and bring those ideas that we all have to this table so that we can consider your recommendations and bring them to light at City Hall. And with that being said, to residents in Ward 5 and all throughout our city, it is our duty and our honor to serve you, and we are here to support advancing our city. I see that there's a question, how does environmental justice work? I seem to have trouble reporting an environmental contamination. Does a staff member would they like to answer that question?
Thank you, Council Member, and thank you, Terry, for the questions. Environmental justice is a term that is used to help classify, and we'll have the information. Actually, Melanie's going to go over that, so I certainly don't want to take over that portion of her presentation. But in terms of reporting environmental contamination, depending on the type of contamination, you can report to different agencies such as Air Quality Management District, the Department of Toxic Substance Control. But if you don't know where to go, you can always report it to the city. We can be a resource to direct you to the right agency to report any type of environmental contamination. So always understand that if you don't know which specific agency, call the city. At this point in time, I would like to present Melanie McCann to address the next portion of our program, which will go into more about what environmental justice is, and hopefully that will answer Terry's question about how does environmental justice work.
Great. Thank you very much, Min. Before we jump into a somewhat of a brief overview, I'd like to ask Alyssa if she could remind everyone how to participate. And we'll go through the presentation first to give everyone some background, and then look forward to listening to your thoughts and comments. Alyssa?
Yeah, hi everyone. So you will be able to participate during tonight's meeting. You'll have a couple of options. You can use the raise your hand feature. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, we'll unmute you. So you have time to do that. And then you can ask a question. You could type it either in the chat like how Terry did, and you could also use the Q&A box. So we will be monitoring all of those throughout the night, and then we'll have time for everyone to speak during the meeting. And for those of you that are dialing in, I don't see anyone dialing in, but if someone does, you'll be able to dial *9 to raise your hand. And then once we call on you, you'll dial *6 to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. Once again, welcome everyone, and we appreciate you taking the time tonight from your family and other duties to be part of the conversation. So tonight we're going to start by asking a quick poll of everyone to see what their understanding is of environmental justice and the general plan. And then we'll go on to answer what environmental justice is, highlight the general plan update efforts, clarify what is an environmental justice neighborhood, and then most importantly, we'll be sitting back and listening to your comments and questions. Ricardo, could we start the poll? Thank you. So this first poll is 2 questions. First one is, are you familiar with environmental justice issues in your community? It's a yes or no answer. So feel free to jump in. And then the other question to consider is, have you heard of the city's general plan update? Again, a yes or no answer. We'll give that just a couple seconds. Great. Ricardo, you want to close that out? Looks like we're almost full. So we're super pleased. You all are the first group that's had 100% yes on that you're familiar with environmental justice issues in your community. And then we have about 67% that are familiar with the general plan update. That's great. So I'll go over briefly, we can close that down. I'll go over briefly for those that aren't as familiar with the general plan update, what that actually is. So hold on just a second. Very good. So what is environmental justice? So in a general sense, it's where there's communities or portions of a community throughout the state, throughout a city, that are disproportionately burdened with pollution and health risks. So they have a heavier burden than other portions of, for instance, Santa Ana. And environmental justice seeks to correct this imbalance and create more equity across the community. As far as the general plan update goes, we've been at this effort for a few years now, and its intention is to plan for the city through the year 2045. A general plan is required by all cities in California, and its intention is to be a long-term guide for not only the physical development of a community, but also its economic health, its environmental sustainability, and the overall quality of life in the community. The pictures that you see at the bottom of the screen, there's 11 of them. They are the different elements that are part of the general plan draft. There are different topics that are important to the community. So for instance, one is land use. Another example is open space. Another is urban design. Another is safety. So there are a variety of topics that all together make for a quality community. The 5 words you see at the bottom of the screen are the themes that came out from our earlier community outreach when we started the general plan effort. And as you can see, the themes or those values, if you will, that came forward was the importance of culture, environmental sustainability, health, education, and equity. And so we have, through the draft documents, we have included these values and highlighted their importance in the draft document. So once again, there's an opportunity to, through your comments, to continue to refine this document before it's adopted. So going back to environmental justice, in 2016, the state legislature enacted the act called Planning for Healthy Communities. It's also referred to as SB 1000, and it requires that when cities update their general plan, that we need to pause and evaluate our disadvantaged communities in order to better reduce the health risks that they're experiencing, promote community interaction and civic engagement, so they're more involved in the public decision-making process, and also prioritize improvements and programs in those disadvantaged areas. So another point of clarification is what constitutes a disadvantaged or an EJ community. So it can be a combination of that those areas have a higher risk of exposure to pollution, be it air, water, or soil. The residents might have a greater burden with socioeconomic and health issues. And in some cases as well, those locations can be near freeways, major roads, or industrial uses. The screen you see before you here are the different, what we call them, indicators, and the Environmental Protection Agency of the state put together this tool to help define what a disadvantaged community is. So there's 20 different factors or indicators. Portion of them relate to pollution burden, and then those on the right-hand side relate to population characteristics. So an example of population characteristic might be that the area has potentially a low educational attainment level, or it might have a higher poverty level, or there might be some challenges due to linguistic isolation, or they might have a higher propensity of asthma issues. On the environmental side, some of the areas have been, there's statistics that show it has a higher exposure to toxic releases from facilities, or the groundwater threat is in play, or that, that there's impaired water conditions. So these are the various indicators that go into identifying a disadvantaged community. This map, as you can see, shows the boundaries of Santa Ana, and the areas that are in orange and darker orange are the areas of the highest disadvantage. Those that score, if you will, with a burden level of 75 to 100 are considered disadvantaged. And so, this again is evaluated by census tract by this tool we were just discussing. This map shows a little more definitively in bright pink, the Santa Ana's disadvantaged communities. And those that are outlined in yellow are ones that were just recently added. It's still in draft mode, but they were added as more census tracts that meet the criteria for disadvantaged community. And this one hatched area is a census tract that actually fell out. So right now we'd like to take a quick pause for another poll. Ricardo, if you can help pull that down for us. So we're always looking for the best way to communicate with the public. And in this case, our focus has been to communicate with the neighborhoods and the census tracts that are disadvantaged communities. So we're asking tonight, how did you find out about tonight's meeting? And you can pick as many as is applicable. So was it through a meeting flyer that was mailed to you? A yard sign that you might have seen? Did you receive an email? Maybe a next door message? Facebook or Instagram message? Maybe through a friend or a neighbor? An announcement from your church or other organization? The city's website? Or something that's not mentioned here, other? Good. All right. We've got, okay, thanks, Ricardo. So it looks like the highest score was actually through receiving an email with 33%, followed by a tie between the city website as an opportunity, next door messages, and yard signs and flyers. So thank you for that feedback. Great. And then for our, so we have one more poll to sort of clarify where everyone is from. On the map, you can see we've identified the 5 different neighborhoods that we're specifically outreach to tonight. And so if you could look at the map, you can see the boundaries in yellow of the different neighborhood areas. So number 1 is Washington Square, 2 is Willard, 3 is Santa Ana Triangle, and then we have number 4 is French Court, and number 5 is French Park. So if you could, in the poll, distinguish what neighborhood you're from. And just as a note, in neighborhood number 3 and number 4, the pink area is the area that is in environmental justice area. Ricardo, could you clarify for me the hatched pink area?
Sure. Excuse me. Yes, the hatched pink area is currently not defined as an environmental justice area. However, in the draft version of the Cal Environment Screen 4.0, if it moves forward with the current data as is, those will be identified as EJ moving forward. So currently they are not, but in the future draft, if it's adopted as proposed, those areas would be considered EJ areas.
Very good. Thanks for the clarification. So it looks like we have a 33% of the folks on the call tonight are from French Park. Welcome. And then we have some folks from the Willard community that are in the EJ area. And then we have a number of folks as well from other neighborhoods that wanted to join in the conversation. Thanks, Ricardo. Thanks, everyone. So again, we have an opportunity to look at making some changes to our general plan goals, policies, and actions as they will help to improve our existing and future conditions in Santa Ana, and with a special focus on the areas of greatest need, like the environmental justice areas. So with that, we have one more poll, and then we'd like to then transition, and Margarita will help facilitate that, for listening and going through the questions and answers as needed. So before we start into that, one question to ask is, you might have multiple priorities, but we're asking what your top 3 priorities might be that the city focus on to help improve the health of your neighborhood. So the options are air and water pollution, road, street lights, and other public facilities, access to healthy food, health and affordable rent, parks and recreation to promote physical activity, the ability to influence city policies and programs, and last but not least, quality education. So we've got 4 out of 7 folks voting so far. Give that a little more time. There's a little more to read on this one. All right, Ricardo, I think we might be ready. Oh, good. All right, thank you. So the top 3 would be air and water pollution to be addressed, road, street lights and public facilities, and parks and recreation facilities. So thanks for that feedback. With that, I'd like to introduce Margarita Macedonia, and she'll walk us through further discussion about your priorities and hearing from you tonight.
So, thank you, Melanie. We just wanted to emphasize that this next part is just as important as the background that was provided. And so when we're talking about priorities and what environmental justice means to you, or what the experience is in your neighborhoods, we did want to share a couple of general areas that we've been able to incorporate some recommendations in our general plan update in the next slide. So as the majority of you have responded to air and water pollution, being a priority, as well as improving public facilities, there are some other categories that you see here on the screen. But we did want to open it up to whoever wanted to share first about, again, your experience, actions or recommendations that you may have that the city ought to incorporate in our general plan update. We did want to see who from the team wanted to kick that this part up. So I see that Jeff Dickman is here from French Park. Jeff, if you'd like to contribute or participate. I would like to volunteer you.
Welcome, Jeff.
Welcome, Jeff. Now we can go to, let's see, Irene from Willard. Irene, go ahead, Irene.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Welcome.
And thank you for hosting this. These all are very important topics for us. We address many of these in our monthly meetings, and we hear from our neighbors in some of the outreach that we do. One thing that we really like to see addressed is the Willard community has zero green space. And that's something that we'd like to see incorporated either through the American Rescue Act funds that would be made available in the general plan and in the environmental justice efforts that are happening. And then we also feel that improvement just to the overall infrastructure with improved lighting, improved access to bicycle lanes, that sort of thing. Those are issues that we've heard from our neighbors.
Great. Irene, on the green space, so you're wanting to see more recommendations or policies that require or allow for additional green space, especially like in neighborhoods like Willard that
more
do
resources.
not have, okay.
So our community specifically has a large amount of renters and folks that do not have any yard or green space. And we don't have any community green space either. So we'd love to see more resources and set aside to create those green spaces, whether it be a park, dog park. We've explored some ideas like a community garden, but really a green space that the community can use within walking distance. That's key for us because many folks are renters. They walk to the grocery store, they walk to the laundromat. So, and another thing we'd like to see is how can we, so these surveys are great, these meetings are great, but like what are the next steps? What are the actionable things that we can do on some of these initiatives?
Okay, great. And I know that Melanie will be able to speak on that further in the presentation, unless Melanie, you wanted to address.
In a general way, in the general plan, we identify specific actions and agencies, city agencies that are responsible to complete those actions and actually a time frame. So that's a beginning of, identifying the action and committing to a specific time frame, and for council to affirm that through the adoption of the general plan. So that's a broad answer. And as far as open space, I know our Parks and Rec agency is always looking for different opportunities and joint use and different things. So those are ongoing, but the general plan allows us the opportunity to, if there's a fresh idea or something, that we identify it and we commit to a time frame as a target to complete. Hopefully that helps a little.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Irene, so much for representing Willard tonight. It's great to see you there.
Thank you.
I see we also have Vivian. Is this Vivian from Delhi?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Vivian, did you have anything to share?
Just glad to be here. I'm with the Delhi Neighborhood Association, and I'm just interested in learning more about environmental justice in Santa Ana. So I know our area has been affected, so I'm just listening in tonight.
Great.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else on the call that would like to participate or have a question or want to share, elaborate on your experience? Teresa, you from Santa Ana College. How about you? I think she needs to unmute herself. Let's see. We have a question from Terry. If the construction on the light rail car on Santa Ana Boulevard and rate is exposed to community and to contaminated soil and its dust, how does that work as environmental justice? We're talking about the streetcar.
I have one comment to make on that. Terry, with your prior comment on this subject, we have reached out to the healthcare agency, Orange County Healthcare Agency, to find appropriate contacts with EPA or others to follow through and on your concern about the potential contamination of some of the soil. So we will follow up further with you on that. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Terry. Would anybody else want to participate? The Destiny, Tabitha, Michael, Teresa. Okay, so let's see, we have another question from Terry. How many weeks will that take? Because I think Ruby asked what was a contamination 2 months ago. So
the best I can say is the person I talked to yesterday with the healthcare agency is a very diligent employee, and I believe that she'll be getting back to me by tomorrow. So we should have a contact very shortly.
And then we have Irene on the chat. She's typed, Willard NA has identified an available space on 10th Street and Flower Street as a potential green space. What steps can we take to move that idea forward?
Well, I would say that you can contact us as a follow-up to the meeting, and we can converse a little bit more about the particulars of the site, see what the opportunities are. We typically would look at the zoning and have to talk through a couple of considerations. But we're obviously looking to support as much green space as we can in our community.
Great. Thank you, Irene. Appreciate the motivation and the drive that Willard has through you and others who've been involved in the process. That's wonderful.
Thanks, we'll follow up.
Okay, so let's see. So Terry also contacted the health department, and he just wanted to let us know that the health department wanted to know like the contamination first in order to respond. So yeah, well, that one, Terry, I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight, but I know that we're going to understand much more closely the concerns that you've raised, and then what we need to know as a city staff to be able to have a better understanding of what's going on with the project and with the concerns. So we appreciate your persistence on that. Let's go to Teresa Mercado Cota from Santa Ana College. So on behalf of Santa Ana College, I appreciate the opportunity to join you and learn more about this important issue. Also know that we have followed up with our faculty and students with current work by community members. Excellent. Teresa, did you want to elaborate on that? I can,
Community work.
on the role that the faculty and the students are.
That'd be great.
Wait, sure.
Yes,
Am I
go ahead.
unmuted? Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Okay.
you are.
Okay. So we had, we joined Artesia Pilar a couple of months ago with a presentation by Jose Rea and another gentleman, I don't remember his name right now, on some of the work.
Oh, Leonel Flores. I think
Yes,
that's his name.
on some of the work that they're doing with environmental justice in Santa Ana. And at the time, they shared some of the work that they've been doing, some stats, you know, a great presentation. And then we talked at the time about them coming to Santa Ana College and talking to some of our faculty so that our students could become more engaged. At the time, they were going to be doing some testing, and they will needed like volunteers to help them out, you know, with some of the testing in some of the areas of Santa Ana. And so we felt it was important, and we got together with them and our president, Dr. Marilyn Flores, and also some of our faculty members to discuss the issue and to talk about ways that we can work together now and in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for elaborating on that.
Thank you.
So we have a comment on the chat by Jeff. And his question, and it could be turned into a recommendation actually. His question is, are developers in areas where neighborhoods need environmental justice required to provide cash or other mitigations for the projects? So Jeff, is that an action that you are recommending?
I think it's a question.
Go ahead. Do you want to?
Min, would you like to help?
Yes, let me address that. And so in terms of mitigations, each project, when they are developed, would have to be evaluated whether or not the project itself has an impact to the environment. And if there are negative impacts that are created by the project, and that's when mitigation would be required. Generally, mitigation are not cash, actually provided cash or funding or money, but funding is mitigation addressed in a couple of ways. They could be either something that is completed by the project, as certain mitigations are required to be completed by the project, or if it's something that the project only contributes to as part of the impact, then yes, in that case, a project developer then can provide the portion of their funding to the city to share as part of the implementation of the overall mitigation. But in general, funding is not the first source of mitigation, but rather the project having to implement the mitigation itself. So that's how a mitigation work in terms of environmental. Separately, as an environmental justice issue, all projects, once we go into looking at policies in the general plan and implementations, all projects would have to be in compliance with applicable implementation measures at the time that they are developed. So as part of this process, we are in the early stages of asking and reaching out to the community to have a good understanding of what type of environmental issues that you in the neighborhoods are experiencing, that then we can turn into policies that can help to address future projects and development. Thank you, Jeff, for that recommendation.
So Min, so Jeff's elaborated on that by bringing up cumulative impacts from an array of development projects and environmental justice. And what about exacting developers for their projects paid into an EJ fund? So it's sort of extending that into a possible action to include.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a great recommendation. Thank you.
And let's see, Irene is asking, can you please provide examples of the ways that EJ efforts would promote healthy food? So like a concrete example.
What did you, healthy food, is that what you said?
Yeah, as one, you know how one of the priorities is healthy food. So is there an example that we could share?
I'd have to look, Ricardo, maybe you can look at the some sample implementations. One that comes to mind is, I think, something related to creating incentives for markets to carry healthy foods, right? The little corner market, not so much grocery stores, but the smaller corner markets, that sort of thing. And then to have the opportunity with encouraging community gardens, farmers markets, to just allow easier and more access to fresh food, fresh vegetables. Those might be two examples. And Ricardo, if you think of anything else, feel free to chime in. But those would be two small examples.
You mentioned the ones I was going to bring up, but another would be like educational efforts. A lot of the times we grow up in neighborhoods where we don't grow up eating healthy, so we don't know what healthy food eating is like. So it's just getting a sense of what proper nutrition is and how we can have educational programs to help us be more informed on that. Other things like you're mentioning, Melanie, would be incentives to work with store owners to offer these types of things. Maybe even looking at land use regulations to allow markets that do offer healthy foods to locate in places maybe where they weren't allowed before. So maybe some of those kind of old-fashioned neighborhood markets that don't seem to exist. So those are some that just off the top of my head.
Thanks, Ricardo. Thanks for the question.
See, we have Gay Olivos from Willard also on the call. Gay, do you want to be able to share any experiences regarding environmental justice and the Willard experience?
I'm sorry I'm late. I had to work late today. You know, to be quite honest, I didn't know there was such thing as an environmental justice. So I'm still trying to grasp the components or the boundaries concerning that. I have to read more and to ask the proper questions. So at this point, I don't have any questions. I just want to make sure that the Willard community is not ignored. And my concern with that is that we have more apartments, residents that live in apartments more than homeowners and business owners. And I just want to get the word out to these residents that are renters that they too have a voice, okay? So I'm really engaged with the Willard Association right now to get that voice out for those underrepresented folks, because I think we deserve the fair share.
Thank you. Thank you, Gay. And you and Marta and Irene are doing a phenomenal job in, you know, reactivating your neighborhood. So appreciate you representing your neighborhood here tonight. And we also had a comment by Terry on the question and answer. Can't wait to meet in person because it doesn't work it keeps these virtual meetings keep people at an extreme disadvantage. And so Terry, we can't wait to meet in person either, because it's, yeah, there are some limitations, but yeah, we certainly look forward to being able to have those opportunities again in the near future. So thank you. And then we have, oh, so Irene's added on the chat from Willard. Classes and nutrition classes are ideal for our community. One idea that Willard has explored is with the downtown Santa Ana Association. Downtown Inc. is offering transportation to farmers markets. So that's great, a great concrete example, Irene. Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to share, comment, questions? So we have on the question box, we have, in addressing air pollution, how is exposure being assessed? Is it being looked at individually or based on center monitoring, based off center monitoring? It's a great question.
So air pollution in general, right, is monitored by the Air Quality Management District. And that's done at different, regional locations. And as you might be aware, the Madison Park folks have been very fortunate to get a grant or two that has allowed them to have the opportunity to have additional sample areas to measure air quality. So those are the kind of exciting projects to better quantify what the air quality and potential pollutants are in the air. So that in general is your answer. We have some specifics going on that's unique because of a funding source, a grant. And then on a bigger level, the rest of the basin, the area is measured at regional stations throughout the county, throughout the region.
So I'm looking at the hands raised and we have Vivian from Delhi. Go ahead, Vivian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I just wanted to share about our neighborhood. We're nestled on the east end and at the end of the city of Santa Ana. And we have so many beautiful things that happen in our park, in the Delhi Park, which is the restrooms are just amazing. They're so nice. And the workout area where the family groups can come out and work out in the morning, those early hours before the sun starts peaking. And the whole park is looking really nice. So thanks to whoever's in charge of doing that. And also we just get a lot of improvements. We have some work being done on, I believe it's on Dyer. And so that's kind of closed, I believe, for the next 2 weeks to go. And we just see a lot of improvements. And we hope to I guess find a solution for the pollution, not to make it rhyme, but we did have some of that affect our neighborhood, which was kind of it was kind of hard to breathe. It was a little smelly, so that's passed. But and also we do have a plume in our area, which we uncovered, not to make fun of that, but that we learned about as we were working on other issues in our neighborhood. And our center is really a vital part of our neighborhood. So it's very large. It's great for meetings and it's great for events when we can do that again. And just encourage people to come out to Delhi. We're the east side of town and right at the end of our, where we end and the next city begins. So Irvine. And yeah, we're doing really good things. We're a little on the down low right now, but we've done a lot of good things. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yes, thank you so much, Vivian. Yeah, Delhi has a history of a lot of activity and also a lot of success in terms of all the improvements that Vivian has mentioned. So it's wonderful. We have Irene. Irene, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, one of the points noted here on the screen is creating safe and sanitary housing. Is that point specific for the houseless? Currently in the Willard community off of Ross at the Cultural Center, there's, I know, an issue that the city is trying to resolve with houseless folks, but we have another issue with, as Gay mentioned, there's several, most neighbors live in rental units. But there's some rental property owners that do not keep up with their properties. And we'd love to see something where there's some guidelines or there's some enforcement of keeping up with properties, having the rental business owners clean up graffiti right away or pick up trash that's being left for the betterment of the community.
Thank you, Irene. This is Min, and we don't have to wait to complete the general plan to address a lot of the issues that you have identified. Whenever you see these type of issues, whether it's trash and debris in the yard, uncollected trash, graffiti, we do have My Santa Ana app that you can report and be able to get a response from our public works as well as code enforcement team to address the issues. So if you're not familiar with the app, you can go to our website and type in My Santa app or Margarita can send you the information, and you're able to help us identify, and then we can address those type of issues. In terms of the housing and the long-term question about what kind of housing are we talking about when we're saying creating safe and sanitary housing, we are saying and identifying that statement to address all economic and housing needs in our city, and including our homeless residents as well. So this is a broad spectrum of policy that are long-term to address our housing needs for all of our residents, regardless of what their economic status is or what their desire is in terms of the housing type. So this is more of a broad-based overarching policy, but we are working to address the homeless and the houseless. Even as we're talking today, the city is in the process of completing a permanent shelter with a goal that, with that shelter, we will be able to assist housing the houseless and provide supportive services that hopefully can help the reintegration of these residents into permanent housing. Thank you for your questions, Irene.
Thank you. If I can just add, yes, we're very familiar with the My Santa Ana app, and we love how quick the city responds to our requests. What we're noticing though is that, especially with graffiti and trash, it's the same walls that we're reporting week after week. And we'd love to see a more permanent solution like better lighting or other solutions.
We hear you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up. We hear you.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Gay Olivos. Go ahead, Gay.
Yes, I'm echoing back on Ms. Irene's comments with respect to sanitary housing. I ride my bike in the community. I ride to El Sol every day, actually, with the boys. And I do see certain apartment units que son mal cuidadas. They're badly kept as compared to others. I was wondering, now that I see sanitary housing, if there's a way we can address the property owner of those apartment buildings to, spend some money, right? Spend some money and upgrade those apartments, because I see some that are very nice and others that are just horrific. Torn screens, wiring hanging around. And I would think that that would be unsanitary. And maybe sanitary would fall into this environmental justice arena to address those property owners to upkeep their property.
Thank you, Gay. And of course, our regulations on sanitary housing and safe housing is addressed, and there are minimum standards for how those types of issues are addressed. And they generally are related to, living space, electrical, heating, lighting, having access to plumbing, air. So those are some of the minimal standards that we have. We also have property maintenance standards that also will require property owners to maintain their property in a manner that is considered to be safe and sanitary. So when you report this information to us and the specific address, we will go out and investigate.
Perfect.
We also have a program that's called our PREP program, and that is an inspection for all rental properties. So please do report it. We have many tools at our disposal. I can't say that we get to all of them fast, because we do have a small team of folks, but we do get to all complaints and address them within a reasonable time frame. Oftentimes, you may see that maybe progress may be slow, and that is due to the fact that we have to go through and follow the due process and address these property owners. Ultimately, we're building a case and may need to take that and escalate it into a legal action. So hopefully that help explains, and please do report into us any types of maintenance issues or property where you feel that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
So do we have anyone else who would like to share? If not, Melanie, I can turn it back to you.
Thanks, Margarita.
Mhm.
So thank you, everyone. And what I'd like to do now is just to provide 2 examples of actions that are presently in our draft general plan that touch on environmental justice. I won't read all of this, but in our land use element, we have an action that talks about changing our zoning code rules related to development and operational standards to address having a better buffer between industrial uses and other sensitive uses like residence, school, daycare, and other community facilities. So the idea would be this action would commit to conducting a study to evaluate the best practices and the most appropriate minimum standards, landscape buffers, et cetera, to create a healthy buffer between those types of uses. And again, at the very bottom, it has PBA. So it would be planning and buildings responsibility to lead the charge, and that we would be working on those efforts in 2021. And then the other example is the idea of creating an interagency team. So that would be, interagency city staff, could be healthcare agency, could be outside the city as well. And the idea is that we would monitor and evaluate different environmental issues in the community. And then we're actually beginning baby steps towards gathering information for contacts for, like was mentioned, if you have some concerns about soil contamination, the different agencies to contact, different databases, maybe with lists of industrial uses with permits, and start to be sort of a depository for information that could make it easier for our residents to access valuable information and contacts. So again, that's something that is one of our actions that came up in our earlier discussions with the community, and that we think that would be very helpful responding to some of the things we've heard from the community. So with that, just to transition to the overall time frame, we are going to be conducting a few more of these neighborhood outreach meetings and wrapping up at the end of May. From there, we'll be refining based on some of your suggestions even tonight, and identifying refinements or new actions or policies based on what we're hearing. Then we would convene a work study session with the Planning Commission later in spring. We'd be revising the general plan environmental impact report that's needed in summer, and then bringing that all back together for public hearings towards the end of the year. So with that, we want to just continue to welcome, if you have other thoughts about or suggestions, feel free to email us or leave a phone message. And if you haven't had the opportunity to look at our general plan website, there's lots of information related to environmental justice, the draft elements. And what you see on the left-hand side here, there is an environmental justice survey that if you haven't had an opportunity to complete, if you do complete it, you get the opportunity for your name to be put in a drawing to potentially win a $100 gift card. So we encourage everyone to take that opportunity. And as with the Santa Ana Revive, we have it available in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and hard copy as well.
And Melanie, if I could just add, the survey is available from the general plan webpage, but I've also dropped a direct link to the survey in the chat if anyone wants to jump on that.
Perfect. Thanks, Ricardo. And with that, just like to really thank everyone for being here, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate your passion to make Santa Ana a better place, and we're happy to partner. Min, would you like to provide
Yes,
any?
thank you. Thank you, Melanie. And I just want to say a quick thank you to our team and our interpreter for a great job tonight. To our audience and everyone, it's good that you're participating with us tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time. I always get, very, just it intrigues me, and I get very excited to see that our residents participating. But not only that, is that how well you interact with our staff. Our staff knows you by name, and they know the neighborhood you work in, live in. So it's great that we have this interaction and participation. So very much appreciated. Again, this is not the last opportunity or the only opportunity you'll have to provide information to us. You can provide it at any outlet on the website. But we also have, I believe, 4 more meetings after tonight, 3 or 4 more meetings after tonight.
3 more, yeah.
Even though they are for specific neighborhoods, such as the ones that we have tonight, but you can still participate citywide. So with that, I want to say thank you, good night, and good health to everyone. Take care.
Good night, everyone.